The 20th century was a period of change. From sliced bread to ibuprofen, many inventions revolutionized the way we go about our lives. Nearly every aspect of the human experience shifted, and the field of entertainment was no different. In 1900, they had kids working in the coal mines, right? But by the end of the century, they were playing with this. I don't know which is better. It began with radio, then movies, then television. In the mid-1950s, however, two unrelated forms of entertainment emerged independently from one another. These forms being theme parks and video games. 1955 saw the completion of Disneyland, revolutionizing amusement parks forever and spawning a new breed of highly themed attractions. In 1958, technician Robert de Bavrak and physicist William Higginbottom developed the first ever video game, an interactive display piece titled Tennis for Two. Over the course of the next 70 years, these two mediums would completely change the way we experience entertainment, providing interactive and tactile experiences, and yet despite their similarities, would often intertwine in weird and unsuccessful ventures.
You've never seen a Six Flags like this before. You never had a faster fall than this before. You never had a place to play like this before. The playport's every kid's dream. You never had a way to ride than this before. The wettest Thunder River's ever been. You've never seen a Six Flags like the one we've dreamed of now. Brave the 10-story free falls. Play in the new Pac-Man Playfort. There's a wetter Thunder River, new shows, and more. So come on out to Six Flags. Come and see what we dreamed of now.
Since the opening of Disneyland, film and literature had guided many theme park attractions to superstardom. From Dumbo to Tom Sawyer Island, the seeds of intellectual property at theme parks began to sow. Meanwhile, in the world of video games, it took a decent bit for things to catch on. It really wasn't until the late 70s that virtual gaming really took off. And no other arcade cabinet exemplifies that rise more than this little yellow freak. Pac-Man showed up in arcade cabinets across the world in 1980. And soon, Pac-Mania spread across the entire planet. Meanwhile, the chain of Six Flags amusement parks had been slowly creeping across the country. Bally, the manufacturing company behind the US distribution of Pac-Man, wanted a piece of the Six Flags pie, purchasing them in 1982. The very next year, Pac-Man and his horrifying wife, partner, weirdly close friend, showed up at Six Flags parks across the US in Pac-Man Playland. These interactive play areas may have been developed during the peak of Pac-Man popularity, but once they opened to the public, the most important shift in all of video game history occurred: the video game crash of 1983. Throughout the early 80s, cheap, low-quality games began to flood the market, and at a certain point, consumers wisened up and stopped buying them. Millions of dollars were lost, companies went bankrupt, and more importantly for us, Pac-Man Land opened at the worst possible time. Just 2 years later, this kids' play area was replaced by the Looney Tunes, as Bally Manufacturing purchased Marriott's Great America, gaining their rights to the iconic animated IP. Just 2 years after that, Bally sold off Six Flags to Westray Capital. However, things weren't so bleak for the video game industry for too long. By 1986, the Nintendo Entertainment System had released in North America to massive success, proving that quality was what consumers desired, something the next batch of video game attractions would actually live up to. As the 90s came and went, video games continued to gain traction in popular culture, reaching all new heights with the Super Nintendo, Sega Saturn, and eventually the PlayStation. One of the defining games of the original PlayStation was Tomb Raider. This labyrinth-crawling, puzzle-solving, polygon-bodied woman took the world by storm, becoming the platform's 9th best-selling video game. Paramount caught wind of this pie-on-the-windowsill opportunity and floated their way to the film rights to this gaming franchise, becoming the biggest video game to live-action adaptation at the time. Coincidentally, Paramount had also recently purchased the King chain of amusement parks. Looking for that sweet, sweet synergy of cross-promotion, Tomb Raider attractions opened up at two of their amusement parks, King's Dominion in Virginia and Kings Island in Ohio. Now, while both of these attractions were based on the film franchise, I'm still going to talk about them, since that franchise is a relatively direct adaptation of the games. Both of these rides were Huss Top Spins, which is a line of off-the-shelf attractions seen at different parks across the world. What made these unique, however, was the immersive theming, especially for smaller local parks like these. Tomb Raider Firefall and especially Tomb Raider the Ride were nearly universal or even Disney-level attractions theming-wise. The Kings Island attraction was especially well done, being fully enclosed in an immersive ride building. However, just a few short years after their opening, Paramount sold off the Paramount Parks chain to Cedar Fair, who subsequently rebranded both of these attractions to The Crypt. Both have since been removed, with Firefall replaced by the newer, more modern Tumbili. But in the world of theme parks, some rebranded attractions can live far past their expiration date.
Advance book an unforgettable day at Alton Terrace from just £18 and ride the new Spinball Wizard. It's flipping crazy!
In 2004, Spinball Wizard opened to the British public at Alton Towers. This is the first coaster on the list, being an off-the-shelf Mauer spinning coaster, and also pays homage to one of the first commercial interactive games, Pinball. From the day it opened, Spinball Wizard was seen as a cheap addition to an otherwise decently themed destination park. Alton Towers is commonly seen as the premier amusement park destination in the UK, making an attraction like this stand out even more. Years later, in 2010, it received a cheap rebranding to the Sonic franchise of video game. Now this rebrand fits Sonic pretty well, in that you spin around and go real fast, but also because its quality can be a little bit questionable at times. The overlay here was very, very minimal and very, very cheap. I mean, here's the coaster before, right? And here's the coaster after. Not much of a difference. Some decals, new signage, and this kind of horrifying Sonic statue were the extent of the new theming. 2015 saw the removal of the Sonic branding, and yet this generic coaster still stands to this day, now back to its original pinball theming. Not too far away, another UK theme park decided to tap into the world of video games, this time with a decently more substantial addition. Until this point, gaming had been relegated to a few major consoles, home and handheld, dominated by a few titans in this interactive industry. However, that all changed when the iPhone released to the world. This touchscreen phone not only revolutionized the way we interact, but it also cultivated its own world of gaming that would prove to be even more lucrative than the consoles of the past. Nearly 50% of the world gamer population considers themselves mobile gamers first and foremost, and 85% of all gaming revenue comes from free-to-play, typically mobile, video games. The first of these games to really hit the mainstream was none other than Angry Birds. This franchise spawned countless sequels, spin-offs, and even a duology of movies. Personally, I'm a Bad Piggies fan for life, but I still get the appeal of Angry Birds. And apparently so did Thorpe Park, who added an Angry Birds land to their park in 2014. This land consisted of 3 attractions: King Pig's Wild Hog Dodgems, a bumper car attraction; Detonator Bombs Away, a smaller family drop tower; and the main draw of the land, Angry Birds 4D, which put you in the middle of a 4D Angry Birds adventure. And while not as well themed as the Tomb Raider attractions, this was at least a little bit better than Sonic Spinball. Also opening in 2014 was a Rabbids attraction at Futuroscope in France, named Time Machine. It's a relatively impressive dark ride that is held back by having these annoying little gremlins as its theme. 2 years later, returning to Cedar Fair, another prominent mobile game had been adapted to the world of theme parks: Plants vs. Zombies. Carowinds opened Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 3Z Arena to good reviews, which is surprising considering the previous few years of mediocre video game attractions. This same year, another park in the Cedar Fair chain opened Mass Effect New Earth. This California's Great America, which was previously owned by Marriott as mentioned earlier, attraction was set in the Mass Effect universe and was a 3D simulator attraction. Unlike Plants vs. Zombies, this ride still operates today and will likely operate until the park closes its doors within the next decade, remaining as one last piece of Cedar Fair's foray into highly themed, licensed attractions. Wait. Did you just say highly themed, licensed attractions? Oh my god!
Here we go.
In 2021, Super Nintendo World opened its doors to the guests of Universal Studios Japan. This immersive slice of the Mushroom Kingdom is by far the most impressive, advanced, and quality of everything mentioned on this list so far. It also came at the perfect time within the worlds of gaming, as the tides had shifted once again into Nintendo's favor, with the Nintendo Switch shooting up to the number 3 best-selling console of all time. Within the confines of this land are 2 major attractions and a lineup of supporting experiences. First is the tentpole ride of the land, Mario Kart Koopa's Challenge, Bowser's Challenge in the US. This interactive, augmented reality attraction puts you, the guest, inside your own Mario Kart course, pitting you against the villainous Jack Black in a battle with the army of Koopas. Just outside this attraction is Yoshi's Adventure, a slow-moving family ride that gives you a nice, relaxing, aerial view of the land. What the hell is that thing? Beyond the rides, there are plenty of interactive games that lead to a final interactive confrontation with Bowser Jr. Plus, there are plenty of dining options, gift shops, and even Easter eggs to other franchises. This land launched a new era of video games within theme parks, soaring to higher heights than ever before, with The Last of Us and Five Nights at Freddy's appearing at Universal's Halloween Horror Nights, along with Donkey Kong's Minecart Madness opening at Universal Studios Japan in 2024. Plus, the future opening of Epic Universe with the biggest Super Nintendo World and Donkey Kong lands yet, and the possibility of more Nintendo franchises such as Zelda and Pokemon appearing at Universal parks across the world. I think it's safe to say that these 2 entertainment mediums, which were previously adjacently related, have finally intertwined properly as prophesied in the 1950s. Thanks, Higginbottom.